It's 8:22, Tuesday, October 3rd, and just 48 hours or so ago, we were dealing with a mass shooting in Las Vegas. So many of us have seen the graphic images and the stories of survivors and victims. Dr. Shimi Kang joining us this morning. How do we process the magnitude of a story like this?
Yeah, and Tara-Jean, it really is a high magnitude trauma. When we think about the images that people are seeing, the number of casualties, the number of deaths, the proximity, how close it is, and how it's something we can all relate to, being at a concert, doing something fun, and how frequent we're hearing these stories. I think the first thing is just to say it's okay to feel upset about it, to feel sad about it, to take the moment to talk about it, even in the workplace. I know some people feel judged if they're processing it or feeling a bit of anxiety. Others may be like, well, why would you had nothing to do with it. Really to recognize that there's an internal sense of grief in the feeling that, are we safe? And is it okay to do all of those things that we love to do? So just take the moment and say that it's okay to feel this way and process through that.
I think that's a really great message. I personally had a fair bit of guilt yesterday because I didn't know anyone personally, but the stories are so powerful. One thing that I don't think I'm probably alone on this is I started to think, am I ever going to go to Vegas again? Am I going to be excited when my girlfriends tell me they're going on a trip down there? Are those healthy feelings? Should we be changing our vacation plans at this point?
Those are totally normal feelings. When we think of the process of grief, first we're in shock, and then there's an anger, and with the anger would come like, why did this happen? And anger at all kinds of people and institutions. And then the depression, which would be that withdrawal, like you mentioned, I'm going to stop doing things. But later we move into what would be called an acceptance, or kind of returning back to, I guess, a sense of normal, where we're making decisions and choices. We're not driven by fear and anxiety. So, but it does take time, and it is different for everyone. Each one of these news stories brings back past news stories too. So we really have to remember that it's not just about this incident, but we are now accumulating, and individuals are being affected in an accumulating way.
And the timeline for everyone, you were speaking about kind of the stages of grief, the timeline on how long those stages take is different for everyone as well.
Yes, absolutely. Some people have a higher set point for anxiety and are more likely to feel anxious. I have patients who tell me that from yesterday that they were feeling anxiety in their bodies, having panic symptoms, having their chest tight, and they just didn't feel well. And those individuals are completely in their right to feel that way and need the time that it takes. Others can hear about it and move on, shut off the news and go on with their day. So we really have to respect each individual's reaction and their time that they need.
So you mentioned a moment ago how stories like this, news stories like this, can remind you of previous traumatic stories that we've had in the news or maybe experienced personally in our lives. How can we draw the line when there's so much information coming at us through the television, through radio, and through our online platforms? How do we decide when the information we're receiving is important, valuable information, and when we've crossed the line into maybe an unhealthy form of entertainment, a grotesque form of entertainment?
Yeah, I think be very mindful. Your body will tell you, your mood will tell you, really, and we've all been there where we're interested in a story. We want to know. It's important to know what's happening in the world, so watching the news is a really good thing. But then at a certain point of time, you get that sick feeling, or it's starting to drag down your mood, or starting to cause anxiety. That is your signal to move on, shut it off. Also, make choices. There's a lot of very hopeful stories in every story. I think in this particular one, the people who came to donate blood, the people who were actually in the middle of threat to their own lives, were protecting others, were taking steps to help others. And so make the choices to follow that angle of the story. That is uplifting. That is a counter message to cruelty and evil. And those kinds of stories can be actually quite uplifting.
Yeah, and really trusting the sources that you're getting it from. Yes. I mean, here at Breakfast Television, Dr. Kang, I can't tell you how many off-the-air conversations we've had about what content to air from this or other stories and how to make sure that our viewers are safe when they're watching our programs. So
yes, and you do a great job because it is really important. Networks can do what's clickbait, and it is addictive to follow those negative stories, and it is a real choice to put that positive story out there. care.
Well, thank you so much for being part of our show this morning. It's always great to have you back. We've got more Breakfast Television coming up on this Tuesday edition of BT.